Hello and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we'll be summarizing World War II, Part 3. Remember to watch Part 1 and Part 2 first. It's early 1942, meaning winter had just ended. You would probably think Hitler would still push eastward, but he thought of a better idea. He would cut off the Russians from the oil-rich Caucasus to get that oil for his army. When he started his plan, the Soviets were pushed back easily. Hitler, however, was overconfident and rerouted the 4th Panzer Army south to the Caucasus early, leaving the 6th Army alone. The 6th Army had to take the important Soviet city, Stalingrad. The Russians stood their ground, but Stalin himself was smart. You see, when Hitler had started his invasion, Stalin had moved the factories to the east. The factories were creating tons of tanks and aircraft, and using those new tanks and aircraft, the Soviets started pushing westward. Hitler had bad news inside fatherland Germany too. America had been bombing the German city of Hamburg, at the time the second most populated city. The city was utterly destroyed by the bombs. In Africa, the Axis had been pushed out of the continent completely. Japan's luck was turned around as well. When they attempted to take Midway, an American island, they were met with strong American reinforcements, and Japan lost 250 naval aircrafts as well as 4 aircraft carriers. From that battle, the Japanese Navy was sufficiently weakened. They also lost New Guinea and the Solomon Islands. The Allies still had to decide how to invade Europe. Churchill and the United Kingdom wanted an invasion into Sicily, but the Americans wanted an invasion from the UK into northern France. They would then agree to follow Churchill's plan. The Allies' ground army invaded Sicily, while in the air they bombed the cities. However, many people in Italy had American cousins, so they started to prefer peace and no war. Mussolini was then, of course, starting to be very unpopular, to the point that he was kicked out of his Grand Council. Because of this, Italy began wanting to surrender. Hitler had already sent more reinforcements south. The operation was ironically called Operation Axis. The Allies were unfortunately slowed down by mud. Due to this, they went with Roosevelt's plan: an invasion into Normandy, aka D-Day. Hey, it's me from the future. Speaking of D-Day, my best friend, who I haven't actually shared anything about him in my YouTube video so far, made a very nice video about D-Day. He's now on the team, so you can see his channel in the description, and you can also see his channel in my channel recommended. Thank you. Now back to my present self. On June 6th, probably the most well-known day of the entire World War, Allied troops landed on 5 beaches, with Americans at Utah and Omaha, the British at Golden Sword, and the Canadians at Juneau. With over 4,000 dead, it was a great loss of life, but the beaches were captured. Then, a massive disaster for the Germans happened. The 7th Army was trapped by troops from the 3 nations I had mentioned, and 2 months later, Operation Dragoon commenced and Allied troops landed on southern France. With Paris's liberation, France was back in the Allies' side and started fighting back against Germany. The Allies would then enter Belgium. In the south, the Allies finally liberated Italy. Mussolini was executed for war crimes. In Asia, Japan was pushed out of Burma and the Philippines by this respectable gentleman, General MacArthur. However, General Nimitz did a different strategy. He hopped from island to island as the Americans moved slowly towards the Japanese mainland. Because of Japan's way of fighting, where they thought surrender was pathetic and only through death would they be a good soldier, they fought super offensively throughout the whole operation. They sent thousands of suicide kamikaze attacks at the Allies. Now back to Hitler. Hitler, seeing the war against his odds, tried his France army destroying move once more.
I know exactly how to fix this. Remember when we trapped the Allies of Belgium and the Netherlands? Well, I'm doing it again.
Using the remainder of Germany's strength, Hitler had created a bulge, starting the Battle of the Bulge. But Germany this time failed as the Allies pushed them back. In America, FDR passed away, with Harry Truman succeeding him as president. Hitler's attempt failed, and with America, Britain, Canada, France, Belgium, and many other countries invading from the south and west, while the Soviets invaded from the east, Germany surrendered on May 7, 1945. just a week after Hitler had actually committed suicide. FDR sadly never lived to see that day. The only Axis nation left was Japan. Japan's island of Okinawa, the last island before the Japanese mainland, was finally captured. America bombed Japan frequently, while the Soviets took some of Japan's territory. The Americans changed their strategy, however. Predicting the immense number of possible casualties from a ground invasion into Japan, the UK helped America in the Manhattan Project. The successful project was the first ever nuclear bomb test in history. Truman warned the Japanese to surrender or be annihilated.
Hey, you know your stupid ally Germany surrendered after losing millions of troops? You want that too? If not, surrender now.
Nah, mate.
So be it.
Once they acquired 2 more bombs, they dropped one on Hiroshima, then 3 days later, another at Nagasaki. The Japanese had no choice but to surrender on August 15th, but the war didn't end until September 2nd. The emperor didn't die or was executed, however. He was allowed to keep his position, but under all Allied occupation for the next 7 years. The war had killed around 80 million people, with countries like China and the Soviet Union losing over 20 million people. This was the most deadly and destructive war in history, with many cities, countries, and states left burning. Armies were left destroyed, with countries like the Soviet Union losing over half their army. Germany would pay 23 billion, Italy would pay 330 million, and Japan would pay a whopping 30 billion. You'd think the world would stop causing conflicts. Well, no. Just 2 years later, the 2 world superpowers, the USSR and the USA, would create a very interesting war, which most of you probably already know, and I could probably make a series on that. And that's it for the World War II series. Thank you for watching this video, and hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.